Welcome to the Blacksmith Chronicles podcast, the official podcast of Ryan Johnson Ministries. This podcast was created for the purpose of equipping others for the advancement of the kingdom of God. We hope that you enjoy this episode and encourage you to subscribe to the Blacksmith Chronicles today. For more information about Ryan Johnson Ministries, please visit www.ryanjohnson.us or email us directly at info@ryanjohnson.us.
Hey guys, welcome to the Blacksmith Chronicles podcast. This week, I have the distinct privilege and honor to have another in-house guest, not just one, but two. Very, very privileged to have this dynamic duo. No, it's not Batman and Robin. It's the best that we could do, though. I mean, in short notice in this time that we're in, and nevertheless, they are student pastors at our home church, and I'm very excited to be able to have them be a part of the podcast. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Ray and Jenny Smith. Guys, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
For sure.
This is going to be a lot of fun because, one, they've not been a part of the podcast before, so they're very, anxious, a little bit nervous, but we're going to have a lot of fun talking about stuff. And I see what I can do to kind of, prod them here and there and pull some stuff that they'll regret saying. No, I'm just joking. I would never do that to them. But nevertheless, what I do want to ask you guys, if you would kind of give us a background, a little bit of your story of who is Ray and Jenny Smith. So, whichever one of you want to start that out.
I guess I'll go first. I'm Ray. I am from good old Sevierville, Tennessee, not far down the road here. I've been at Summit Church since 2008 is when we met. So 14 years now. So I've been, I met Jenny in 2008. She invited me to church here and we kind of hit it off from there. Been a youth pastor here since 2017. So going on 5 years now. And throughout that journey, went to college, did my thing, played sports all my life. So I'm a homegrown boy. Sevier County High School through and through, Sevier County Schools. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Football, love football, love sports, just kind of anything sports related. So about me.
Okay, so what makes Ray and Jenny Smith? I think that was the question.
What makes Ray and Jenny Smith?
So we got married in 2017, and we've just been living life, loving what we're doing, and super grateful for where God has brought us from. We both attended ministry school in Pennsylvania for 2 years, and then we did an internship in Florida for a year. And so after that, we knew that God had called us to be a part of the local church. We've never felt like, the type of people who want to go on missions or who are, very reach the entire world. We both felt really called to be in the local church and to grow the local church. And so that's what we've been doing, living out our mission and just living out what God has called us to do.
So we can say that you guys have been suffering for Jesus as student pastors, right? I mean, that's technically the terminology. It is definitely not for the faint of heart, especially in this season. And, you have one of our own. Our oldest son is a part of the student ministry, and our youngest son is right at the verge of crossing over. He's probably going to cross that over very, very soon. But it's one of those things that it's got to be a challenging time that we're in as student pastors. Christy and I have done that before. We've been down that road and loved it when we were a part of it and loved it when we weren't a part of it. It is the tug of war of ministry sometimes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But, I'm wondering right now with everything that is going on in our culture, the battles, the strongholds, the division and stuff, what are some of the obstacles versus when you got in? When you came back out of ministry school and you got back from Pennsylvania and you start serving the Lord here in Pigeon Forge, Summit Church, what are some of the differences that you recognize then versus now? And what does that dynamic look like?
I'll just say definitely one of the first things that's a lot different than what we're used to is just the amount of exposure that the kids are exposed to every single day, just the blatant sin. That's really a lot of what, we see they struggle with. We didn't struggle with some of the things we're just 10 years out of high school, and it's a completely different world than what, we struggled with. These kids are coming in at 11 and 12 years old and having suicidal thoughts. We never had that when we were back in school. And the amount of exposure to just openly evil sin is just insane to me.
It seemed more common here lately with the thoughts like that. And exactly what Jenny was talking about, the exposure to all the technology that's advancing, and they're exposed to so much more than we were coming out of school. So I think that's really affected them in a negative way. So,
yeah.
It's one of those things, because I think you'll hear a lot of parents, they'll say, well, when I was growing up, people would battle suicide or drugs or alcohol, whatever the case is. And it's kind of something that's been weighing on my mind for a while, because I think that a lot of people feel like that sin has increased. And what I'm wanting to get your insight and your opinion is this: I don't know necessarily that sin has increased or evil has increased as much as it is the exposure of what is being gone has increased. There's a lot of more revelation of what we know is going on behind the scenes. There's definitely, I'm a little bit older than you guys. And, it's one of these things where I can think back, and I remember people battling suicide. I remember people battling drugs, alcohol, pornography, all these things that was happening. But in my day, you didn't pick up a cell phone to go to, pornography sites or anything like that. You literally had to find a magazine or something.
Right.
And now it's a lot more access. And so what I want to know is, even in that, what you're saying, in a 10-year gap in between from when you guys are in school to where you are right now, do you also see that is it the more the revelation of that we're seeing more of these things that have been hidden for years, or has sin really increased, evil increased?
I definitely don't think it's increased. I think it's always been there, but I think this generation is a lot more vocal about those struggles. I think the mental health movement, the Me Too movement, like all of these things, everybody now has anxiety or depression. Everybody now is on some sort of medicine, where if you struggled with that in previous generations, you didn't talk about it. We just push it down. And now this whole generation, it's everything. Everybody talks about it. Everybody has it. And it's just it's become normal. And it's become like, oh, well, if I struggle with this, then I must have this. And that's something that it really makes me sad to see in this generation, is if they're having a hard time, it's immediately anxiety. It's immediately depression. And it's like, actually, maybe this is a battle that the Lord is, that you're pushing through. Maybe you're hitting something. And it's not just immediately that, but that's what they like to go to, because that's what they see all the time.
They definitely see more like self-diagnosis. People are like diagnosing themselves with so many things just because they're struggling with things. And some of these things, the devil, the enemy's attack them. And, it's a time of growth. And I definitely agree that I don't think there's more sin in the world, but there's more of an understanding, and our perception is changing towards sin.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you mentioning that not too long ago. Somebody mentioned, the evil is just rising in the world. And you're like, I would question that. Is evil, are we seeing more evil, or are we having a better understanding of the evil in the world? And I agree. I think it's just our understanding is rising. We're able to see and pinpoint these things a little more clearly nowadays.
And I feel like that we're becoming a little bit more accepting of it as well. It's become very normal, where in the past it maybe was normal for people who were in the dark in their rooms, but now it's normal in everyday life. You see it everywhere. And that breaks my heart that even the church, people who are raised in the church, it's a little bit, we've become more accepting to it.
It's interesting, because I think you probably would have someone that is listening or watching this episode, and when you make the statement that years ago when we had issues or problems, we kind of pushed it down and stuff. And I can already hear individuals screaming in my ear going, it's a good thing that we don't push that down anymore. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, and I understand what they're saying. Yeah, it is a good thing. I'm not discrediting that. And I'm not making a broad statement that it is either good or bad all the way across the board. What I am saying is, from an outsider's point of view, it seems like everybody needs to have some kind of tragic story in order to be accepted, in order to gain the pity, to gain the attention, to gain the whatever. So if I have anxiety, people, they meet whatever demands I have upon me. Or if I'm suicidal, or if I have this or I have that. And I'm not saying that people genuinely aren't. That's not what I'm implying. So, please don't nobody come at me, because I know that there are real things that are happening, but it's not the same thing. But it makes me remember hearing a statement say, if you want to be on the cutting edge today, don't get a tattoo, because everybody has a tattoo. So everybody's got a tattoo. So to be cutting edge is not to get a tattoo, because everybody's got one. Well, it kind of feels like that on a lot of these issues. And we have over-medicated a lot of stuff. And again, I'm not anti-medicine. Medicine has helped a lot of people. I'm not that person that's going to be anti-medicine in that sense. But at the same time, it's very easy to get prescribed things and to be addicted to pills and a lot of things. We have young teenagers that are taking 3 or 4 pills a day for nerves, for anxiety, for depression, all this stuff. And that stuff at times can be real. Again, I'm not discrediting it, but everything is not simply a natural thing. There are spiritual applications to this. There is a spirit of heaviness, which is a spirit of depression. There is a spirit of suicide. There is a spirit of anger. And the list goes on and on and on, that we can find the spiritual side to this. So if I'm a parent and I'm listening to you guys as student pastors, and I've got a child, and that child is exemplifying or demonstrating any kind of thing that we could possibly imagine right now, whether it's anxiety, pressures, whatever the case may be. And I'm looking at, do I get them medicated, or do I take a spiritual route and stuff? And again, I'm not telling people not to talk to doctors or counselors or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying on the spiritual side, what are you guys saying what would you say to a mom and a dad on the spiritual side of things when it talks about this generation and what they're dealing with on these things?
Well, for me, first thing, we're young parents, so we don't know what it's like to have a teenager. But for me, the first thing would be, what's in my home? What's coming over the TV? What video games are you playing? Like, that is my number one. I need to make sure that my home is a habitation for his presence. If my children are struggling, it doesn't mean that I need to go find somebody at the church or go find a counselor. Like, first things first, make sure what's in your home is holy unto the Lord. Like, that's my first opinion. And then secondly, I would say if you've gone through that, you've prayed and you've asked the Lord, is there anything here that I need to get rid of? I need to change. We need to change the structure of our family or whatever's going on. Then I would say, take them to the church, take them to counseling, take them to, let's look at this. Let's get some inner healing. Maybe let's see what you're dealing with. That's what I would say.
I remember somebody told us one time, trash in, trash out. What Jenny was talking about with exposing yourself in the home and all these, video games, TV and all that. What comes into your spirit is going to be, portrayed in your actions in your everyday life. But also, I used to be pretty skeptical on getting counseling, getting inner healing, getting things dealt with and talking through them. But even as I'm getting older and even as a youth pastor, it's good to talk to somebody and have somebody to kind of walk you through those things and get talking through things, past traumas, things in your life.
Yeah.
But also as someone who works in the medical field, doctors and prescriptions and all these things, these are good things. And it's good to be seen every now and then. But I would encourage parents first, God first and foremost, praying. The Bible says in Matthew 6 to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and everything else will follow. And so first seek him. And definitely I would encourage counseling if it keeps progressing, if things keep going, forward, counseling, talk to somebody. Yeah. So
I think these days too, a lot of parents are afraid to be in their kids' business. And like I said, we're young and we're not there yet, but even now I'm the type of person who I'm going to know what you're doing, what's going on, and I think that's really important in that even teenagers and kids need that sort of security and stability to know I'm not just out here doing whatever I want to do. Like, I have people who love me and care about me and who are willing to put up boundaries so that I don't fall into things that are hurtful to me. And that's just one thing that I would encourage anybody who has a teen that may be struggling, is to like get in their business, find out what's going on. And, that could be a little iffy sometimes. I know kids don't like that. Teenagers are going to push back against that. But it's like, God gave me rule over you. Like, he gave me to you. So if I have to hurt your feelings and get in your business to see what's going on in your life and to get you through this season, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
In, I guess you'd say my day, gosh, I feel like an old person when I'm saying that, but we simply call that accountability in our life. That, we didn't hear the terminology much in our healing or anything like that,
Right.
But we knew accountability. We knew to be able to be held accountable, and we gave a rite of passage to people to be able to ask questions and stuff. And I do remember in our time when we were student pastors, I remember, parents that were very much, I'm going to respect my child's privacy, and, and I'm not going to check their phones or check their computers or check their room and stuff. And I was always baffled by that personally. I'm just always baffled by that, because it's like, that child is in your house, and unless that child has a job, paying rent, paying the water, paying the groceries, that's my room.
That's my phone.
You're lodging and everything. So it is an interesting dynamic and stuff that I believe. What I wonder is, are we finding out because I want parents to hear this from student pastors. Are we finding out that some of these issues or problems, or whatever the case may be, identifications, are really becoming their identity, rather than to be mom and dad's son or daughter, but more importantly, son of God or daughter of God? In other words, I know a lot of times when you have people that have battled sicknesses and diseases and stuff, if they're not very careful, that becomes who they are rather than what they're going through. And what I wonder with this modern battle right now in a lot of our students that we're seeing, is that why it is so addicting, because it becomes an identity.
I think absolutely. I think this generation is desperate for attention. I think they're desperate for recognition. That's why you see what you see when kids are posting crazy things online just to get likes. They're doing really dangerous challenges just to get views on TikTok. They're doing all of these outrageous things because they're desperately craving someone to approve of them, or someone to show them like, hey, you're cool, you're doing what you need to do, we like you. And that's why I think a lot of those issues, well, that gives me attention. Well, now mom knows that I'm suicidal, so now she might be nicer to me, or now she's going to do these things that I want her to do because I've said this. And not saying, like you said earlier, not saying that that's not real and people don't struggle with that. It is. But I think the reason why they latch onto that is because they see that it gets them somewhere where it wasn't before. If you didn't have any problems, you could have gotten pushed to the side because, well, so-and-so's dealing with this. So you don't have any problems, so we're not going to focus on that. And I think that's why it becomes their identity. It gives them that attention that they're grasping for.
It becomes their false identity too.
Yeah.
I do wonder, when we see these things that are happening, and they're everywhere. There's not a group of individuals that I could take every student pastor, I believe, in every church that I'm connected to, and I'd hear the same thing. I would hear the same thing. I imagine, I'm speaking on behalf of that, but I think I would hear them overly say, we have the same issues where we're at. So it's not simply a regional thing as much as it is a global thing. Yeah. It is a way that the enemy is happening. It's working right now. But that's not the case in every single student. Right. You do have students that are latching on to their identity in Christ. And so I want to know, what are you seeing in students that are gravitating and really connecting the dots to their identity through Christ? What are you seeing in that level?
Connecting the dots through Christ.
I'll go. I'm the talker. The first thing I just want to reiterate is the kids who are grasping on to their identity and who are running after the Lord have a foundation where their parents require that. Their parents are very involved in their life. They're involved in their spiritual time. They're very involved in the way that they have a relationship with God. They laid that foundation for them. And that's what we see. The kids who are really going after God are the ones whose home, they also go after the Lord at home as well. And so that's really cool to see. And then also really heartbreaking to see when you have a student who really is in between, I really want to go after God, but I'm struggling with the one foot in the world, one foot, and you see the dynamic at home is the same way. And so that's just the first point that I want to say, if you have a teen and you want them to go after the Lord, you got to model that at home. That can't be a mom and dad fight every week. And then we all come to church and we act like we're this Christian family, because this generation will call that out real quick. And they have, and they tell us. And you'd be shocked at some of the things that they come in and tell us that their parents do. And we just kind of have to, okay, and go from there. There's been a few times where I'm like, I know your mom would be really upset if she knew you told me that. But that's part of it. And that's why we love youth ministry. They're so real. They don't put up with bull crap. They don't, if their parents are acting crazy at home, they're not going to come in here and be like, yeah, my dad's this spiritual guy when he's not, Yeah. So that's one thing, having that home stability.
It's definitely instilled with the parents. I mean, us even having a 2-year-old, we try to instill that into our daughter, praying over her, having her pray over us, those types of things, having that spiritual authority in the home and teaching her that too. And even we've talked about, we're going to homeschool her. We're going to put her in public school. And we've both agreed we're going to put her in public school because she carries authority. And even, in the public schools, having one foot in the world, tempted by everything, she's going to be able to share the love of Christ and be able to be a light in the dark world. And I think that comes from the parents. That flows from the parents down, teaching their kids to be strong and to, even though it is dark in schools, in the workplace, they have authority in Christ and they carry, the love of God wherever they go, and to be able to change atmospheres wherever they go,
And I will say this too. We have kids who have very structured homes and we have kids who do not. And they're amazing. Both of them are incredible. And it is something that is a little bit harder for the ones who have to sort of fight it on their own and try to push past even family, generational things that they're having to push past. But when we see those kids and we know what they go through on a daily basis, and we see them pushing and we see them hearing God and we see them seeing visions and getting things in prayer, there's nothing better than that. And you can tell that those kids in this generation are so tenacious. They're going after it. They're pushers. They're really hard pushers at what they're doing. Anything they do, they're going 110%, whether it's down into the world or whether it's to the Lord, they're going 110%.
That's good.
Okay. What's my son told you?
No, it wasn't him. No, Elijah might be a different story.
That boy is delicious.
You've been sitting here worried about that the whole time?
I couldn't resist an opportunity. I mean, they're my son's student pastor. Why would I not jump all over that? You know what I'm saying? But no, you brought up something there that intrigued me, because we have 4 children ourselves. We have 2 that have been through school. We have 2 that are finishing. Well, one is a junior, the other is in 6th grade right now. And so we got a little bit, and they went through the public school system, and the last 2 are in the public school system currently. And, we've discussed this, that our oldest one, once he graduates, more than likely with the youngest one, we'll make a transfer with him, only because of the way that the system is progressively going. Now, that could change tomorrow, right, as we say that. But we're the parents that are not anti-public school. We're not anti-homeschool. We're not anti-Christian school or anything like that. We don't think lesser of any Christian because their kids are in public school.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think greater than because your kids are in Christian school or
Yeah.
because it really, I believe every parent, that's your decision that you have to do what's best for your child.
Yeah.
It could have absolutely nothing to do with education as much as it does with where their maturity level's at, or if there's some physical handicaps
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the case may be. So I don't ever believe that we should just blanket statement everything on that. But I do know at the same time that because our children have been in public school their whole lives, 2 daughters graduated, one will graduate in 2 years, and the other one is currently in public school, we have caught the flack from people.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been in ministry for 25 years. We've been a pastor, we've been an associate pastor, we've been a student pastor, and we're itinerant ministers. And it's one of those things that, people will literally walk up to you and, I can't believe that you have your kids in public school. And you're just like, well, yeah, first of all, I'm an itinerant minister. That means I can't afford Christian school.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I'm just being realistic right there. I can't afford that. So it was never an option. For us, homeschooling was something that we've discussed often, but our kids never want it. 3 out of 4. Our youngest one is really, really wanting it. But it's one of those things that we're going to continue to do the public and in 2 years reevaluate it. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, he may change his mind and want to continue it out. We're going to grant that unless some things happen and then we say we're pulling the cord immediately in that. So I'm saying all that to say, I immediately, when I heard you say that, with your daughter, that you guys are going to, see that she goes into a public school, I immediately heard people just watching this episode or listening to this episode go, see, I was with them until they said they was going to put their kid in public school and stuff and everything. Why in the world would this man and woman of God put their kid in public school? Why would you put them in that environment? And this is something that you guys have been weighing out and stuff and everything. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in one of our family groups and stuff and everything. But, why, as student leaders, why are you guys making that decision not to shun the public school environment?
For me, I feel like you've got to know your kid. You've got to know, I don't believe that every child is meant to be in public school. If you don't know ours, she's very bold. She doesn't back down. And we're raising her that way. We're raising her to be very vocal about what we believe and what we don't. It's funny because Halloween just happened and everyone would come up and ask her, did you go trick-or-treating? And she just looked at him stark in the face. No, we don't do Halloween. And, at 2 years old, my toddler and people's faces just go like blank, like, okay, what do I say now? And I'm like, that's who we're raising. We're raising her to be somebody who is vocal about her values and vocal about what we believe. And like I said, we both sort of feel like if we kept her home, we'd be doing a disservice to her. Yeah. We both feel like that she has to be a part of a social environment. And I realize that there are things that are very wrong with the public school system. And that's another reason why I say you need to be extremely involved in everything that your kids do. You need to know what's going on. You need to be a part of school board meetings. You need to be a part of all of these things. But that's that's who we're raising her to be. And we're not shunning public school, because if every one of the Christians in public school backs out, then what? What do we have? We don't have anybody who is sharing the love of Jesus, who is bringing light to these dark places. And like I said, again, every kid is not meant to be in public school. I don't feel like if you have a kid who's struggling with things like that you should just throw them out to the wolves. But if you have prayed about it and you feel like that's something that is right for your child, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it any better. But that girl is bold, just like her mama. She is very, very clear and frank. But no, she is a social butterfly. She thrives around people. And so, like she said, we would be doing our daughter an injustice, but also us an injustice. I feel like it would be a headache on us trying to homeschool her too. And her mom's already said they'd butt heads and and it wouldn't be good. But yeah, we plan on putting her in school and letting her be bold and doing her thing. Because even when we were in school, we had challenges, and I remember having a Bible history teacher that me and Jenny, both of us had a class with this Bible history teacher, and we didn't agree on things, and we were able to debate those things. And with other non-believers, we were able to talk to, people about God. And I've noticed through ministry too, that some of the most accepting people of, Christianity are people who don't even believe. And so I've learned that to be true even through ministry school. And so that's why we're going to put her in as, just to be a light in that place, and to be able to, gain knowledge and gain, understanding of the world and how the school system works and everything. That way, when she gets older, she's not in the dark, about these things.
Yeah. And like you said, it could change tomorrow. So we're still in that process. She's 3 now, and we're still weighing what we're going to do. And if things go really bad, we're just in that place of just praying it through. But right now we're like, girl, go love on those people. So.
Well, that's kind of the way we are with ours. There was some legal issues that came to the forefront. Here we are in the state of Tennessee. I can't speak for everybody's state, but, we set, especially our oldest son, down and said, if these 2 things are implemented in the public school system, you're immediately out.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we have a governor that signed a law in prohibiting these things. So, we set my son down again and said, well, you got your grace card right there, on that one. But I'm always asking him what his teachers are trying to teach. And I've, giving the red flag for the socialism doctrine and so much more that could be been trying to force down our children's throats and stuff and everything. But the things that could change is our governor here in Tennessee will not be the governor forever.
Right.
So another one can come in and reverse things. Right. And then we've got an issue on that. And so there are things that have to happen on that. And I think the most important, I love what you said, is you got to figure out what works best for your child. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think a lot of Christians get into trouble in the realm of competition.
Yeah.
And so, they look at a leadership on a church and they say, well, those leaders, they don't have their kids in a Christian school or homeschooled. They must not be as holy and righteous as we are, because we make sure. I am a little bit older than you guys, and I remember the first time I ever heard of anyone being homeschooled. And the reason they were homeschooled is because they got kicked out of school. They weren't permitted to come back because they were trouble. Mm-hmm. So it would be until 2009 when I met the first family that actually homeschooled their kids on purpose.
Wow.
And I was like, this is an option?
Yeah.
I had no idea, because it was not my world. Yeah. Now, from 2009 to where we are in 2022, I know tons of homeschool families.
It's the majority now.
Yeah. And so, again, I want people to hear that, it's not Bible, but it is an old Indian wise proverb, never judge a man until you walk a mile in his shoes. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing. When I say Indian, I mean Native American. Nobody come at me. Native American, indigenous people. I don't mean to insult or anything like that. It just, the first word that popped into my mind in that. So, it is one of those things. But I do want you to take the time. If you were sitting here in a room full of parents, what could you tell parents? And this is 2 sides of the coin. First of all, I want to know what you could tell parents they can do to be beneficial to their child. Mm-hmm. And then I want you to flip the coin and say and acknowledge what is being done right now that is very, very helpful, that you guys see from because the thing about a youth pastor is, yes, you're ministering to those teenagers, but it's so much bigger than those teenagers. It's so much bigger. And you literally have them for a very short window. And it is such a challenging thing, because every statistic shows that most people, if they're going to leave a local church, they're going to leave it immediately after high school in that college or that gap year process right there. And they have a high probability of never coming back. So student pastors have a small window. Children's pastors have a small window. You don't get much time with kids. If we did the math on this, you guys probably average maybe 5.5 hours with students. No, it'd be less than that because you don't get them on Sunday morning.
Right.
Just
you only get them on Wednesday. So an hour and a half is what you get to invest in
probably
their life?
about 2 to 3.
Yeah.
By the time it's all over. Yeah.
Okay,
We try to do at least one thing per month too, like an outing, just to kind of get them all together and have some fun outside of the church. So.
Yeah, but it's very short.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 in a 7-day cycle in a week where they have probably the most amount of influence is at school.
Yeah.
And then they're home, and then their friends, and then church ministry would be at the bottom of that. So what could you give? What advice could you give to moms and dads? And what could you give them and saying, hey, you're doing a good job? So advice and encouragement.
I think the first thing for me would be to listen to your child, listen to what they have to say to you, listen to what's going on in their everyday lives and what, and maybe that can unlock a door to them, telling you some things they're struggling with or some things that they've dealt with or some past traumas or anything like that and things that they may be identifying with. So definitely listen to your kids and again, just to be that voice over them, the voice of reason and their encouragement in everything they do. And that would be what I would tell parents. And even for us, we're with the kids very briefly throughout the week, but we try to listen to everything that they have to say and try to, involve them in everything we're doing and, just encouraging them throughout their everyday lives. Cause we've struggled with some of the things that they've struggled with. And so we were there in their positions and their schools and stuff. And so just to kind of relate with them as well. And, just to encourage them.
No, I think that's good. And I know a lot of people are like, well, my teenager won't talk. Every time I try to, ask him something, they're like, oh, nothing, or it was fine, or, that sort of thing. And I feel like if that's the relationship that you have, then there needs to be some mending. There needs to be some trust rebuilt. There needs to be some not just griping on them about their chores, but hey, like, let's sit down and really talk. I want to hear what you're going through, and to come off in a way that's loving and that's like, it's supportive and encouraging, like you were saying, and not just like, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, because that's going to push them even further away from opening up to you. So that's what I would agree with you. Just listen to them, like hear where they're coming from. And I know everybody's like, don't judge me or don't be so judgmental, but just hear what they have to say and don't come at it from a way of like, well, I'm your mom and you need to fix this, or I'm your dad and you need to fix this, but just to listen.
Yeah. I feel like just harping on them just pushes them away even more. And even the kids, and these aren't your kids, some of the kids come to us and tell us things that are happening at home and stuff like that. And so, so it's crazy that they'll tell us before they'll tell their parents, so that trust, it's just building that trust and being able to just listen to them without criticizing them or judging them is important.
And being consistent, I would say as well, which I know is hard because even I feel like toddlers and teenagers are very much alike. But to be consistent with them, to be in their lives consistently, not in and out, not today I like you, tomorrow you're on my nerves, but to be consistent and to just be stable. I feel like more than anything, teenagers need stability in their life. And because they're going through these huge hormonal shifts, they're going through, I don't know who I am. Who am I supposed to be in the world? I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to like be a Christian. It's just so many back and forths that they need parents who are stable and who are secure in who they are.
And these are the most important years of their lives. I mean, years from now when they're out of school and stuff, they're going to look back on these times and they're going to, look back and see the people who spoke into their lives and were able to listen to them and actually give them positive, encouraging advice. And, we're able to speak to them through their situations or through anything they're going through. And I remember whenever I was in youth and somebody spoke into my life, and I remember that just like it was yesterday. And so just being that voice and being able to just listen.
Okay, I got to have at least one phenomenal story from youth ministry. And it can be from your own experience, or it can be from you guys as being leaders. But I want to hear this just crazy radical story of youth. Now, it can be spiritual. Mm-hmm. It can be funny. It can be radical. It can be whatever you want to be. I just want to hear one story, and we'll call this part of the podcast Stories from Youth Ministry.
There's so many.
It's been 5 years. What you got?
Well, there's some from us being youth pastors, and then there's, even how we got, together and got married. That whole ordeal. Honduras. Okay, I'll tell something quick. So when we were actually in youth ministry, this was years ago, 2013, 2012, something like that. So we were just helping out. We were in college at the time. We were just kind of helping out, and we were going on a mission trip to Honduras. And the youth pastor at the time, he was going around the room, what do you guys expect to see in Honduras? And everybody was saying, I expect to see the blind being able to see, the deaf being able to hear, people being healed and all this. And it got to Jenny, and she's like, this is going to be weird, but I expect to find my husband in Honduras.
I was that girl.
Yeah.
I was that girl.
And mind you, me and Jenny, we were kind of just friends at this time. We weren't even together.
That makes
we
me
went to
cringe.
Honduras. We went to Honduras, and we saw these amazing things.
Oh, hold up. Let me get this understood here. Y'all knew each other. I want everybody to hear this. Yeah. You knew each other, and you knew you were on the same trip at the same time. Yes. And Jeannie pulls the card out. I hope I find my husband on this trip.
I didn't think it was him.
We were like so far apart. We were just kind of I was going on the trip because my brother and sister were in the youth group. Right. I was like, I'm gonna go keep an eye on them. Basically, because my mom and dad forced me to go. So I really didn't expect anything. When I got there, me and Jenny reconnected. Learned that the people who were running the Honduras trip, that were over it, they ran the ministry school that we ended up going to for 2 years and then came back home. But in that time, we reconnected, and then a few years later got married. But on that trip as well, the craziest thing happened, because I was kind of skeptical of the trip anyways, because I was a college kid, and I was like, healing kind of sketchy. So I got there, and mind you, everybody was speaking as Spanish-speaking country, right? And so we get there, we're praying for people, and I've got my interpreter there who barely speaks any English, and I was praying for this guy in a wheelchair, and during prayer, he could barely speak, or he told the interpreter what he was feeling, and he said he felt electricity coming from my hands to him. And mind you, this guy was paralyzed, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. He started wiggling his fingers, and I took a step back. I was like, wow, that's the craziest thing ever. And so at that point, I was like, okay, God, you're doing something to me, and this is real. Healing is real. And so from that point on, I look back at that, and I'm like, wow, God can use me to pray for healing and heal somebody. And just being a skeptic and not even wanting to go on the trip, and these major things happened and shifted the course of our lives. So that's one for me, but there's many others.
There's many others. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely didn't think he was going to be my husband.
I love it. That's the card that she pulled.
Was that too immature for you?
Well, it just everybody else made me look bad, because they're like, I want to see people who are blind, get their sight. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of going for myself. That's what I'm believing.
It was going for sight. It was just a different kind of sight. Right. That's
love at first sight.
So I'll give you two back in my day that just still own me to this day. Had one young man, he had aspirations of being just the greatest theologian of all time, and apologetic and this and that and everything. And I'm teaching a Sunday school class one day, and he literally raises his hand and he looks right at me, and he said, the only reason I'm a part of this youth group is I listened to you to prove you wrong.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is what a life, But then back years ago, when skinny jeans first came on the scene, there wasn't a market for quote unquote skinny jeans. They were literally women's jeans that guys were wearing. Mm-hmm. And we had a young guy that was a part of the youth group that if he walked in with a tutu, every guy the next service would be walking in. He just had that leadership, natural leadership to him. And he was the first one to wear skinny jeans. And then it was like dominoes. Here they go, wearing skinny jeans. And there was just, I'll never forget, there's this young man, and he didn't have the body frame to be able to pull skinny jeans off. And it was bad. And I mean, he couldn't really pull them up above his hips, because he couldn't get them any higher. And he literally comes in the service and he was playing an instrument. And so to get on stage, he is waddling like the penguin because he can't literally bend his legs. They're that tight on him. Yikes. And he goes to get on the steps and he has to waddle and throw that leg up on the step and throw that leg up on the step. And I just walked up to him and I said to the guy, I said, listen, I know you want to be a part of what's going on and everything, but there's some things that we just can't be a part of, and you need to realize this is the thing that you can't be a part of. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I still have that image in my mind of how funny that looked to see this guy just because he could not move his legs. It was unreal. So that's my funniest story.
Taking over. That used to be when we lived in Pennsylvania. Ray got on I don't know if it was like the Yankee fashion or whatever, but he was the same way. His jeans were so tight.
What's sad is, I even hate to say it, like growing up in like grade school and stuff, I used to make fun of people in skinny jeans. And then we got to Pennsylvania and I lost a ton of weight. I was almost 300 pounds and I got down to like 195. So I was like, I'm going to try the skinny jean fad. And it like stuck. So I really can't say anything. I used to wear skinny jeans.
Yep. He was that guy.
So here's the question, or the opportunity I give to all of our guests is, maybe I didn't get to ask a question that you wanted to share something for everybody that is watching or listening to this episode, and we just didn't get there. So what I do for each of my guests is give them an opportunity to have the last word, that final thought, to share anything that might be on your heart. Maybe we've covered everything and there's nothing left for you to share, but maybe you want to speak to students, to parents, whatever the case may be. I want to give you guys the opportunity to have that final thought.
Okay. Well, I'm a very simple guy, man of very few words, but like it's an honor for me to be in the position I am, to be able to speak in to the lives of young people and young adults and youth and students in general. Because like I said, we were in their position at one point, and even us being young as we are now, we're still kind of in that position. But it's an honor for me to be able to share my life experiences with those kids and even with the parents, and be able to share what God has given me, because, through the years, I've doubted what God's put on my heart, just like, some people who may be listening to this. And so it's an honor for me to be able to pour out, even on the days we don't see any fruit. Sometimes me and Jenny go home after Wednesday night and we're like, did these kids get anything we were talking about? Did they
That's
listen
youth
to
ministry
anything?
in a nutshell.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of times we're like, we're not seeing the fruit, but then bam, a few weeks later, maybe not in our timing, but when, that God reveals, this fruit, like it's a humbling experience. And even through the hard times, we see the fruit of what we're doing. And just to be able to be in this position is really humbling, and it's an honor.
Yeah.
That even the staff here would entrust us with this position.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's an honor to be able to speak into the next generation. But one thing that I would say is, if I could say anything to anybody who has anything to say about Gen Z, is to change the narrative of the way you speak about them. We always hear, this generation is so ungrateful. This generation is so self-centered. They just want everything to be about themselves. And it's like, you hear those things and you expect that from the world, but when it comes from people in the church and you hear people in the church, leaders in the church, or mature people in the church talking about this generation in that way, it really it burns me up, because I know and I see the potential that these kids have. And I just want to go up to people and be like, stop talking about them like this. This is the next generation that is going to be in big places. Like, speak life over them, change the way that you think about them, change the way that you speak about them, and just encourage and speak life over them, instead of constantly calling out what they're doing wrong, or how selfish they are, or how, ridiculous they act, or whatever. And that's just something that burns in my heart the last few weeks. Like, change the narrative. even when you pray, don't pray a selfish way or pray in a way that makes, oh Lord, just help that generation. No, speak life and boldness over them, that they would walk in the power of God and that they would experience the goodness of God. Like, change your whole way of speaking about them is what I would say.
And one more thing that really got my attention was somebody told me a long time ago, leadership is raising someone to do better things, greater things than you are. And even us as leaders, and you as parents as well, great leaders raise people up to do better and do greater than they are. And so us as youth pastors and you as parents, our jobs are to raise these kids to take our places and to do greater and bigger, better things than we could ever dreamed of doing. And so I would encourage you to just raise them the best of your ability, love them, love, listen to them. And that's my advice.
Again, guys, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be a part of the episode. I've enjoyed it. It flies by.
It does fly.
It does.
I hope to do it again with you guys sometime in the future because I enjoy having a good conversation with you. But Ray is wearing the merch of Summit. So again, they are the youth pastors at Summit Church, TN.com. For those that may be ever visiting the Great Smoky Mountains, our church, our home church, Summit Church, is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So visit the website again, summitchurchtn.com. But if you want to send a message to Ray or Jenny, you can do so at their email. It's on the screen. But for those that are listening to this episode, students@summitchurchtn.com. Again, that is students@summitchurchtn.com. Send them an email, contact with them. Even if you're a youth pastor, you could ask some questions, ideas, bounce some stuff off of them. I'm sure they'd love to get connected with other ministries, learn some insight on what to do, and so on and so forth. Again, guys, you rock. I really appreciate you taking time to be a part of it.
It was fun.
It was fun.
For everybody else that's been listening and watching this episode, we genuinely hope and pray that this episode has encouraged you, it has equipped you, and it has challenged you to further advance the kingdom. I ask you sincerely, make sure that you share this episode. If you're on YouTube, share this video. If you're on the podcast, share the podcast with your friends, everybody on social media. Leave us a comment in the section in YouTube, or whether or not it's a podcast. We're on Amazon. We're on Destiny Image. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcast as well. Rate and review. This helps us get the word out and grow the podcast as well. We genuinely love you guys and appreciate you all. And we bless you in the name of Jesus.
Thank you for listening to the Blacksmith Chronicles podcast. It is our prayer that this episode challenged you, encouraged you, and equipped you for the advancement of the kingdom of God. For more episodes or ways that you can partner with Ryan Johnson Ministries, please go to www.ryanjohnson.us or email us directly at info@ryanjohnson.us. Please join us again soon for another episode of the Blacksmith Chronicles.